Realme has another release now of the GT Neo 3 series. It is the 3T. Now this model is powered by the Snapdragon 870. It has 80-watt charging, a larger 5000 mAh battery, and the main camera is 64 megapixels. Other than that, it really is identical to this, the GT Neo 3. But in this video here, I'm going to go in depth. We'll compare both of them. I'll let you know the differences in, for example, the loudspeakers, gaming performance, battery life, the exact charge time results that I get, and any other differences, so you know which one of these models you should actually pick between the GT Neo 3 and the GT Neo 3T. Both phones come with these smoky grey TPU cases. We get our charging cable. So with the Neo 3, it's a Type-C to Type-C, because the charger is a Type-C charger, as you can see right there, 150 watts. This one is Type-A to Type-C, and our charger is 80 watts with the 3T. SIM tray tool and paperwork is also included. Both of these GT Neo 3s do have a similar style to them. So they're going with the racing look, racing stripes here with this blue model of the Neo 3. Then the Neo 3T has a checkered flag look to it. So plastic on the back of it, plastic on the back of that, and they do have plastic frames. Thickness of both of them is about the same, so they're just over 8.5 millimeters. However, there is a difference in our weights. And why is that? Well, because we do have a larger battery. So this is the GT Neo 3T with a 5000 mAh battery. So that's 196 grams versus then the 4500 mAh capacity, which is lighter at 191 grams. But I would not base my decision on their weight or the thickness of them, because they really are almost identical there. Other similarities, well, with the layout of the ports is exactly the same, and they both just take 2 nano SIMs. They both support 5G, but if you want a micro SD card support or a 3.5mm headphone jack, you are out of luck. You see, if I just put them both the same way, that they are pretty much identical. They are using the same frame design, which of course, as mentioned, is plastic. So downwards firing loudspeaker, 2 Type-C ports. Both of them do not support video out, unfortunately. Both do have dual loudspeakers, and there is a little grill here at the top with the GT Neo 3, but it really makes no difference. But I'll give you a sample of what the speakers sound like, and I'll compare both of them, of course, later on in the video. And 2 microphones there, so we do have noise cancellation with voice calls. Now the cameras, what difference do we have here between these two models? So we have a main 50 megapixel sensor on the Neo 3, and that has optical image stabilization, then versus a 64 megapixel in the 3T. Now that one doesn't have any OIS, so it's going to be susceptible to movements. Now daylight shots, from these examples I'm showing you here, side by side, they are very similar. There's not that much of a difference, and the ultra-wides I won't show you, and the selfies are exactly the same, more or less. But a massive difference in low-light performance. Here you can see that the optical image stabilization with the 50 megapixel camera in the GT Neo 3 is far superior, so it's a much sharper, clearer image, where it's a bit of a blurry mess, the low-light performance we do get on the 3T. So if you want the best camera, the main cameras, go for the Neo 3. The screens on both of these models are identical. They're really good displays. So max brightness of 1300 nits. They are AMOLED screens, 120Hz refresh rate, and they both have a touch sampling rate of 360 megahertz. So they're identical. The only difference between them is this, the cutout. So both of them have the same 16 megapixel front-facing camera, but I do prefer the GT Neo 3's centered one, and it's to the left here with the 3T. So I don't know why they decided to make that change, but there it is. Now, touch rate on both of them is very good. Triggering gestures on both look really good. Blacks look really deep. And both of the displays can be made out in direct sunlight thanks to their peak 1300 nit brightness. They both do offer the same options in the ROM. So the refresh rate you can set to either auto select, which is going to be automatically going between 60 and 120. But I would have preferred to have seen on both of these a 90 hertz option. It seems to be Huawei and a very few limited other companies, manufacturers, and brands that do this, but it would be a nice option there. You can both adjust all of the colors of them too. So if you want to, for example, tweak the white balance, you can go and do that. It's pretty standard there. The options we do get are really good now from manufacturers. Both models, of course, running the same version of Android 12, and they both run Realme UI version 3. Now, there's a difference in the RAM here and, of course, the chipset. So Snapdragon 870 with 8 gigabytes of RAM, and then the Dimensity 8100 or 8100. And you'll see here we can dedicate a little bit more with the 12 gigabytes of hardware RAM, and then you could up that to what they call RAM expansion. Now, I really wish manufacturers would change this, not call it RAM expansion. It's very misleading, and some people are saying, yeah, I can actually just add 7 gigabytes of RAM to my phone. You're not, of course. This is just a virtual memory. This is a caching system, so you can allocate more space to that if you want to. So you can put up to 7 here with this model and 5 with the smaller RAM version. But what it's doing is helping smooth out things with the additional caching file that it's using there, the virtual memory. So that's a definite bonus to help speed up the UI, which, by the way, I want to talk about is very good on both. I am noticing equal performance on these, and maybe at times loading could be a little bit quicker on the Dimensity 8100 device here, but the Snapdragon SD, of course, that 870 is a great chip, and with 8 gigabytes of RAM, that's ample. That's more than most people need anyway. Multitasking and gestures on both are working really fluid and smooth. There is really no noticeable difference between both of these when it comes to that, but let's jump into some actual benchmarks to see the differences between the chipsets. But just before I do, wanted to point out that both of them, the ROMs are pretty much identical, so you don't have a lot of bloatware. Nothing like what we get with Xiaomi with their almost 2, sometimes 2.5 gigabytes of bloatware, up to about 20 different applications here. But you can see what I would classify as bloat here: TikTok, Facebook, a few others on there, but it's not that bad at all. It's pretty good. So charge time, there's a huge difference here. As you'd expect, we've got 80-watt charging versus 150, and the 150 charging, both of these went from 10% to 100 in my test here, only 14 minutes. That is insane, but this is still crazy fast. 31 minutes to go from 10% to 100 is, in my books, perfectly acceptable. And remember, this is actually a larger battery. We've got a slightly smaller battery here by 500 milliamp hours in the more expensive Neo 3 model there. So benchmarks will show us that, okay, the GPU that is present in that Dimensity 8100 is more powerful. Now, when I game, I can see this a little bit at times with a game like Genshin Impact, but to be honest, most other games like PUBG and things like that, you will not notice a difference. I would not base my decision on really these synthetic benchmarks because both of them run really well games and you're going to have no problems with them there. Just because one's higher in a benchmark doesn't really mean in real life use that it's going to be better. They look identical. It's just tiny little things that I'm picking up on here. So the sequential storage read speeds here are the fastest on the more expensive model. And you'll see there that especially the sequential writes, there's a big difference there. So installation times of applications, for example, will be quicker and are on this model, but both have very decent random reads and writes. Again, I wouldn't base my decision on this. I would base it on other things like camera, battery life, charge time, and the big one, price tags of both of these. So they both do support Camera 2 API. However, with the MediaTek, you might have a little bit more difficulty getting Gcam ports. And with the Snapdragon model here, you should be a little bit better off there if you want to try out Open Camera, Gcam. Both of them do pass the safety net check here, which is good and what I expect. Both of them do have a Widevine Level 1 cert. Again, I do expect this. And they will both run Netflix in Full HD, but both of them Amazon Prime Video. Sadly, are only in standard definition. Now, there is a difference here with the GPS. That's because there's a limitation with the Qualcomm chipsets, some sort of law that they cannot have an accuracy better than 3 meters to not compete with military tech or something like that. But you can get down to an accuracy of 1 here with the MediaTek chip. But the average signal strength is a little lower there. They're both very good. So they're gone are those days of MediaTek GPS being poor. No, it doesn't happen. What about throttling? So this is where things get really interesting, and why I was mentioning before that I wouldn't base my decision off synthetic benchmarks, because what really happens is you'll find that the Dimensity here, it's a very good chip, will actually throttle down in performance and be a little slower than this model here after things like gaming. But really, when I'm gaming on both of them, they kind of feel exactly the same, really. Not much of a difference here, but still, excellent result. And I absolutely love this chip. The Snapdragon 870 is, in my eyes, still Qualcomm's best chip ever that they have made. Battery life. So the results here are interesting. Both of the displays were calibrated to 200 nits of brightness. It's a fixed looping benchmark test. Completely fair here. Both of them connected up to the same network. And this is what surprised me. The Dimensity, the 8100, is more efficient. It runs for a little longer here in this fixed test, which is great, even though it has a smaller battery. That's why it's a bit of a surprise. Now, real-world use, you are looking at around 9 hours of on-screen time, 8.5 on both of these, because it's different use from a looping benchmark, of course. But both of them do have very good battery life and very good battery standby drain. It's not really that much compared to the Xiaomi's out there that can be terrible sometimes. Then audio. So both of them do lack a 3.5mm headphone jack. Unfortunately, you need to use an adapter, and I've tested out both of them. They sound similar, but I do think the audio actually sounds a little bit better on the Qualcomm-powered one here with the Snapdragon 870 versus the MediaTek. There's just some differences in it, but it sounds a little richer and better, I think, with that Qualcomm. It just could be down to software, but loudspeakers, let's have a listen to them now. So first, the 3T, and then the 3 I will be playing. All right, that was very close. They sound almost identical. The only thing is, I think the Neo 3 is a fraction louder, but there's really not much in it. Now, both of these, of course, are phones still. So what about voice calls? They sound fine on both. It sounds like any other phone, flagship phone. There is active background noise cancellation too with these models. And then finally, gaming performance. So they are both, as I mentioned before, super similar. Thermals on both of these are really good. And a title like PUBG, if you run smooth, you've got the extreme rate option here with the Neo 3T, with the camera, of course, in the left-hand top corner there. But if I set it to HD, I still get the extreme frame rate. However, with the Snapdragon 870 powered model here, with the Dimensity 8100 model, if I set that then to HD, you'll see that I lose the extreme frame rate, which is not what you want. So both of them now set to extreme, and we'll see just how they do perform. This is the 3T here, so it's around 40 frames per second. You can see the frame rate, so it is a little bit slower than what I'm seeing. You can see some lag there, and let's see if I can just get a kill. Okay, managed to get one kill there at least. Actually, that's the third kill now for me, so I can still get the kills, but the frame rate tends to dip down at times a little. Let's move over now to the Dimensity 8100 powered device here, and this is a constant 60 frames per second. I've not really seen it dip down into the 40s. You get just more consistent frame rates here with the Dimensity. So the MediaTek chip here is performing a lot better than the Snapdragon 870, which I'll go back to one last time. You can see there, it's down to 40 frames per second, down to 40, and then again up to about 60 here outdoors. It's just not as consistent. Oh, and he's got me already. So that's game over for me with this game. So if you want the best PUBG performance, go for the Dimensity powered GT Neo 3, not the 3T. Thermals on both of them are excellent. With a title like PUBG that's just running at 60 frames per second max, they are just, well, lukewarm. They've both been playing now for about 30 minutes. This is, in fact, my second game that I've played, second round here. And you see really similar temperatures. Now, when you push them really hard with a game like Genshin Impact, you will then see them get up to about 46, 47, and 48 degrees Celsius. But both of them have excellent thermals, much better than the Snapdragon 888 or the 8 Gen 1 phones that I've been testing out.
What about our pricing? So unfortunately, I don't have any info on the pricing of these at the time of me recording this video, but it's safe to say that yes, the 3T is a cheaper model. So which model should you get? It's very simple here, that if money's not a problem when you're looking at both of these, I would go for the GT Neo 3. Why? Because it has better battery life. Even though this has a larger battery, it just shows you that the Dimensity 8100 is more efficient. It's also better at gaming. PUBG performance was normally a constant 60 frames per second, where this dipped down to 40 to 50 sometimes, so it wasn't quite as good. The charge time, clearly, of course, 150 watt charging versus 80. This is a lot faster, as I showed you. And then the camera. The main camera is quite different because it has the optical image stabilization. Low light performance, especially on the GT Neo 3, absolutely kills the 3T model here. So thank you so much for watching this in-depth comparison between these two models. Now you know which one is the best for you.